I went out and got my first public job. Dutch Square in Columbia was, it was the biggest thing around. I mean, that was the mall that everybody was going to go to. There was a small store, a retail shop inside Dutch Square called Cromer's Peanuts. Some of you that maybe live in the Columbia area and have been to Dutch Square back in its heyday would remember Cromer's Peanuts. It had, when you walked into the store, when you looked up, there was a glass, a room that was enclosed in glass, and behind that there were 5 monkeys. And the monkeys would jump around and swing around, and it was just great entertainment. It pulled people in because they wanted to see the monkeys. Well, one of the things, whenever I went to work there, one of the things that we had to do every evening, 30 minutes before we closed the store, one of the fellas, they wouldn't let the girls do it, one of the guys would go up, and from the outside of the monkey cage, you could pull a lever, and that would open a little door that would allow the monkeys to go into a room where they would sleep during the night, and also their food would be in that room waiting on them. So you'd go and you would pull that, and it would open the little door, and then you would walk around to a bigger door, big enough for a human being. You would open that door, and you would kind of shoo the monkeys into that little room. Well, one thing I can tell you is monkeys can be mean sometimes if they want to. They certainly have a mind of their own. And they had told me that if a monkey ever refuses to go into the room, the one thing that they're scared of is spraying water. And so they had this little small bottle, little squirt bottle with water in it. And so if a monkey wouldn't do what you wanted it to do, you would get that little bottle and you would start squirting water, and the monkey would run away. And once they went through the little chute, then you would close that small door, and then you would have successfully gotten the monkeys out. Something that had to be done every night. Well, one Saturday, there was no manager there, and basically they had left me in charge, and we were packed. It was all we could do to wait on all the people that were there. And it got to 30 minutes before closing, and we were just packed with customers, and one of the girls came over to me. I think I was the only guy working. She said, "Hey," she said, "can I go run the monkeys through?" Well, I knew girls weren't supposed to do it, but I felt like I could wait on a lot more people than she could. I had more experience, so I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And I was busy with customers. I didn't look up there to see what was going on. I found out later, I'll tell you kind of the end of that story, but I found out later that when she went up there, she got a broom and she tried to shoo the monkeys through with a broom. Apparently monkeys don't like brooms. The next thing I know, she's coming downstairs and she said, "I could not get the monkeys to go in the cage." And I said, "No problem, I'll go take care of it." Well, I had no idea that she had made the monkeys mad. So anyway, I got my little squirt bottle, I opened the door, and when I opened the door, there's a monkey standing there on one of the little swing bars waiting on me. And as I stepped in, he lunged at me. And all I had time to do was back up. I had my hand on the handle of the door. I pulled the door shut, and the monkey just hit that door just as hard as anything, slamming it shut. Well, a couple of things. One is I probably had 100 people down below that was watching up there and probably saw all the color drain out of my face when that monkey came after me. So I felt embarrassed. And then I felt irritated that a monkey had caused me to run like that. Well, the little squirt bottle obviously had no effect on the monkey when he was that mad. But we also had to clean that cage out about twice a year. We had to hose it all down. So in that little room, we had a garden hose with a nozzle. And I took that garden hose and I hooked it up to the faucet. And I took that nozzle in my hand and I kicked that door open with my foot. And there that monkey was waiting on me again with my little squirt bottle. Of course, it was no squirt bottle. It was a hose nozzle with full force on it. And I gave it to him and off he went into his little cage. Well, it made great memories, but dealing with monkeys and cleaning out monkey cages certainly wouldn't be the kind of job that you would like to have your entire life. Kind of a petty job sometimes. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to be able to spend just a few moments with you today. I've been looking in Samuel, and we find a place where King Saul has gathered his army, and they are on one side of a valley ready to fight the Philistines. The Philistines are on the other side of the valley. So two great forces facing each other, just waiting for the first person to shoot that first arrow. But instead of them attacking one another, one of the soldiers comes out. And this isn't your average soldier. First off, his name is Goliath. Most of us would recognize that name. Goliath is 9 feet tall. Just to kind of give you an idea of what kind of muscular build he must have had. Goliath had what they call a coat of mail. That would have been the same as like a bulletproof vest today. So it was all of these interlocking metal pieces of metal that if you got hit by an arrow, the arrow would not penetrate it, that sort of thing. Well, the one that Goliath wore weighed 125 pounds. Can you imagine carrying that much armor? And then he had other armor, a helmet and spear that weighed, so what he had to carry around was a tremendous weight. So this, not only was he tall, but he was muscular. He was a big guy. And for 40 days, Goliath came out as the armies would gather, and Goliath would step up and he'd say, why should these two armies fight? He said, why don't we just let one person on each side fight? He said, you just send out your best man, whoever you have, and I'll fight him. And whoever wins, we'll just say that army has won. Well, when Goliath would make that challenge, all of the soldiers would just back off because they certainly didn't want to be the one to take up that kind of challenge. Well, one day, David, he was working part-time as Saul's musician, and he was also working part-time as his dad's shepherd. And so when he was there with his dad came to him and he said, look, I want you got 3 of your brothers that are soldiers. How about take some snacks for them, some food, take it over, deliver it to them, give them a little something good to eat. They'll appreciate that. So when David gets there, everybody is, all the soldiers are out gathered up on the line, and so he leaves the snacks with the guy that's in charge of the supplies, and he goes out there and he hears the challenge from Goliath. Goliath gets up there and he said, I defy the army of Israel. All kind of other things I'm sure that he said to make them all feel badly. David started asking some questions. Well, why doesn't somebody go out and fight him? Has the king offered any kind of reward for anything? And they said, oh, yeah, King Saul said if a man will go out there and beat Goliath, he'll give that person his daughter. They'll get married, and that soldier would become, the king's son-in-law, just all kind of great things. And so, it's great rewards, but nobody thinks they can beat this 9-foot tall fella. And David says, you know what? He said, I believe I could do it. Well, David's brother comes up to him. And I think his name was Eliab, if I remember correctly. This was his big brother, oldest brother, the one that when Samuel saw this oldest brother, he was tall and bold, and Samuel thought, surely this guy looks like a king. This is the brother that comes to David. And he probably maybe has a bad attitude because he wanted to be the one that was picked by Samuel, and Samuel didn't pick him. The Bible doesn't give us all that, but probably a little animosity going on there. He looks at David. He said, what are you even doing here? He said, we don't need your questions. We don't need to hear from you. You just need to get out of here and go back to your petty job of shepherding. Kind of made me think of my monkey job. Some of those petty jobs that we might have had in life. So David, he started easing back and got away, and I think about the things that when people look at us. I had a pastor tell me one time, a pastor of a small church. It really kind of moved my heart when I heard him say it. He had pastored a small church his whole life, and he just told me, he said, nobody ever asked me to come preach at their church as a visiting pastor. He said, because I'm just a small church pastor. And that really touched my heart when I heard him say that. Because it seemed to me like he was thinking that being a small church pastor was not an important job. There are probably a lot of people that, a lot of you that might look at what you do. And you might say, well, I don't have a big important job. I'm not the governor of South Carolina, or I'm not the state senator or U.S. senator, or whatever it may be. I don't have a really big important job. It just seems like God has just put me in this place, and what I'm doing just kind of a petty thing. I can't help but think about David. His brother said, go back to your petty job, shepherding. But you know what that petty job did? First off, it provided an income for David's whole family. It was pretty important for that. In addition to that, David learned life lessons as a shepherd. We'll find out later that David even was able to tell people that while he was shepherding that he had to fight a bear, that he had to fight a lion. I mean, these things that David had to do while he was doing this petty job prepared him for so many of his life experiences. So whatever it is that you might be doing, I want you to know that God is preparing you if you will allow Him to continue to do that. We never get too old to be able to learn something. I know I've heard the expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you can. And there's things that God wants to continually show us if we're willing to keep our eyes open and put our faith and our trust in Him. And so that's my challenge for you this week, is think about where you are, what you're doing, and maybe even some of the things that people call on you to do that seem so insignificant. And you're thinking, why can't someone else do this? Maybe God is just wanting you to shepherd the sheep for a little bit to prepare you for the next thing that He wants you to do. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May you truly be ready to take that next step for God, whatever it may be. Thanks for taking the time in viewing today.